Pastor, a word? Of course.
Don't be long. Do not worry, you will enjoy this.
Boom, boom, boom. Open the door. Atlanta police. It was 5:47 a.m., and Nolan was still half asleep when the second bang rattled the frame. Boom. Peace jolted upright. Nolan, who is that? He swung his legs off the bed, heart already thudding now. I don't know. Another knock. Harder. Pastor Nolan Whitaker, open the door now. There's something about being called by your full name at dawn that, it doesn't feel right. Nolan reached the door, hands shaking slightly, and opened it. 2 officers, serious faces, no confusion. Pastor Nolan Whitaker, yes, what's going on? You are under arrest for double homicide. Silence, real silence. The kind where your brain refuses to process the words. I'm sorry, what? Nolan blinked. There has to be a mistake. The victim is Patrice Lawson. His throat tightened. And her unborn child. That's when it hit. Unborn? His voice cracked. Pregnant? What are you talking about? She wasn't. I didn't. He stopped. Because he didn't know. He didn't know she was pregnant. He hadn't even known until that moment. Behind him, Peace stepped into view, barefoot. Arms folded lightly across her chest. She didn't scream, didn't grab him, didn't ask questions. She just stood there, watching. The officer moved forward and cuffed him. Click. Peace. Nolan turned toward her, panic breaking through. Now, they're saying she was pregnant. I didn't know that. I swear. I didn't know. Peace's face didn't change. Not anger, not shock, just calm, too calm. And that calm? It felt heavier than the accusation. Neighbors' porch lights flicked on as they led him down the driveway. A respected pastor, a husband of 15 years, accused of killing a woman and her unborn baby. Let me ask you something. Have you ever poured everything into someone? Your money, your time, your youth, your future? Have you ever sacrificed so deeply that their success felt like your own? Now imagine finding out another woman is carrying what you prayed for every night. What would that do to you? Nolan kept repeating himself in the patrol car. I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know. But the officers didn't respond. And Peace? She didn't cry in the driveway. She didn't run after the car. She stood there, breathing slowly, watching the taillights fade. And I need you to think carefully here. Was that strength, shock, or something else entirely? Stay with me, because what happened next? Well, it changed everything. And before we continue, do me a favor. Like this video right now. It helps YouTube push this message out. Comment too. Tell me honestly, if you were in Peace's position, would you stay calm? Subscribe if you're new here. Because this story, it's not just about betrayal. It's about sacrifice. It's about obsession. And it's about a decision that had already been made, long before those officers knocked. Mrs. Whitaker, where were you the night Patrice Lawson died? The detective's voice was steady, not aggressive, just direct. Peace didn't rush her answer. She didn't fidget. She didn't look confused. At Northside Fertility Clinic, she said softly. My husband was donating sperm. We're doing IVF. There was a pause. Not awkward, just long enough. The detective glanced down at his notes. You've been trying for a child? Yes. Her voice didn't crack. For years. Let that sit for a second. For years. Needles, appointments, hormones, hope rising, hope falling, all while building a church, all while supporting a husband the world respected. The detective leaned forward slightly. And after the clinic, we came home. No hesitation, no stutter, just calm. But here's the thing about calm. Sometimes it protects you. Other times, It hides you. Your husband left later that evening, the detective continued. He went to see Patrice. Peace nodded once. Yes. He told me. You weren't angry? Now that question carried weight. Peace inhaled slowly. Well, I was hurt. A small pause. But anger doesn't fix betrayal. The detective watched her carefully. You knew she was pregnant? That was the first time her eyes shifted. Just slightly. No, she replied. I found out when you told us. Another pause. Longer this time. You know when someone answers correctly. But something still feels unfinished. Like a sentence that didn't fully land. That's what it felt like. The detective closed his folder. For now, that's all. Peace stood. Smooth. Controlled. And as she reached the door, he asked one more thing. Mrs. Whittaker, did you love your husband? She didn't turn around immediately. Yes. Quiet. Certain. Very much. But love? Love can heal. Love can endure. And sometimes, love can justify things it shouldn't. Let me ask you something. If you had given someone your college fund at 18, if you had stood beside them for 15 years of marriage, if you had prayed over empty pregnancy tests while another woman carried their child, would you just sit back? Would you just forgive? Or would something inside you whisper, this isn't fair? Peace walked out of that station the same way she walked in. Still, measured, controlled. But what no one in that room understood was that Peace had already made her decision. And Nolan? He was about to learn that silence doesn't always mean innocence. Sometimes it means preparation. Comment below right now. Do you think Peace was protecting her husband or protecting herself? Because what we're about to step into next is 18 years of love, sacrifice and quiet wounds that never really healed. And trust me, the foundation of this marriage is where the real story begins. Now let's go back, not to Houston, not to Atlanta. Charlotte, North Carolina, Youth Revival Conference, summer heat, folding chairs, gospel choir rehearsing off-key in the background. Peace was 18. Braided hair pulled into a neat ponytail, notebook in her lap, listening, but also observing. She had grown up in Atlanta, West End, tight community, strong black church culture. Faith wasn't decorative in her family, it was structure. Nolan was 18 too, fresh from Columbus, Ohio, clean haircut, nervous smile, holding his Bible like it grounded him. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, he wasn't the type girls circled. He was quiet. Peace noticed him because he wasn't trying. During a breakout session, he stood up to speak. His voice trembled at first. I believe God is calling me to preach. Not just in church but outside. In cities that don't want to hear it. Some people clapped politely. Peace didn't clap. She studied him. After the session, she approached him. You really believe that? She asked. He blinked. Yeah. I do. No backup plan? He smiled faintly. No. She tilted her head. Well, then you better be serious. He laughed nervously. I am. There was something about his sincerity. Not confidence, sincerity. They talked that night on the church steps for hours. About race, about faith, about what it means for a white boy from Ohio to preach in black communities. Peace didn't sugarcoat anything. You can't just preach at us. You have to understand us. I want to, he said quietly, and that mattered to her. By the end of that weekend, they weren't officially anything, but something had started. Long phone calls, long-distance visits between Atlanta and Ohio. She challenged him constantly. Are you studying? Are you serious? Are you disciplined? He loved that about her. Peace wasn't soft with him. She was intentional. And when they both turned 20, Nolan got accepted into pastoral school. The tuition letter arrived, and it was more than his family could handle. He sat on Peace's mother's porch in Atlanta, holding the paper. I might have to defer, he muttered. Peace stared at him. No, I don't have the money. She went quiet. Not angry, not emotional. Just thinking. That night, she opened her savings account. Her college fund. Every dollar she had saved since she was 14. Scholarships, part-time work, church donations. The next day, she placed a cashier's check in his hands. He looked at it, then at her. Peace, what is this? You're going to school? He shook his head immediately. No, this is your future. She exhaled slowly. You are my future. He started crying. Right there, 18-year-old Nolan, crying on a hot Atlanta sidewalk. I don't deserve this. Then become the man who does, she replied. Let that sit. She didn't loan it. She gave it. That was the first sacrifice. And she never reminded him of it. Not once. Pastoral school changed Nolan. He studied theology, leadership, church administration. Peace worked retail in Atlanta while taking night classes part-time. Slower path, but steady. Every weekend she drove or flew to see him. Encouraging, correcting, praying with him. When he doubted himself, she'd say, well, did God change his mind? Or did you? He'd laugh. She kept him grounded. At 21, he proposed. Not with an expensive ring, just honesty. I can't promise wealth. I can't promise comfort. But I can promise I'll love you first. She didn't answer immediately. She studied him. You better, she said finally. They married in Atlanta, small black church, gospel choir. Her mother cried through the entire ceremony. His parents looked nervous but respectful. Interracial marriage wasn't common in their extended circles, but Peace didn't care about whispers. She cared about direction. After graduation, they moved to Houston, Texas. The church started small. 25 members, then 50, then 100. Nolan preached with passion, but it was Peace who organized outreach. Peace who managed women's groups. Peace who counseled struggling couples. People would say, Pastor Nolan is gifted, but the foundation, that was Peace. 15 years passed. The church grew into a respected congregation, not mega church level, but influential. Houston knew Pastor Nolan. They knew his calm voice, his clean reputation, his consistency. What they didn't see were the nights behind closed doors, the quiet conversations in their bedroom. Peace lying on her back, staring at the ceiling. Negative test in the trash. Nolan sitting beside her. I'm sorry. She'd turn her head. For what? For not being able to fix this. She would inhale slowly. This isn't something you fix. Years went by. Baby showers came and went. Friends announced pregnancies. Peace smiled publicly. Privately, she would sit in the bathroom alone, just breathing. Infertility doesn't scream. It whispers. IVF became their new routine. Appointments at Northside Fertility Clinic in Atlanta when visiting family. Hormone shots. Schedules. Charts. One night, after another failed cycle, Nolan reached for her. Not rushed. Not desperate. Just close. He brushed his fingers along her arm. You're still the most beautiful woman I know. She looked at him carefully. You're not just saying that? No. He kissed her forehead first, then her cheek. Slowly, deliberately, there was longing there. Not just physical, emotional. They held each other like people trying to fill a space that wouldn't stay filled. She didn't give in easily. Peace had pride, strength, but when she allowed herself to soften, it was intimate, quiet, breathing shared, foreheads touching, whispers in the dark. I want our child, she murmured once. He swallowed. I know, not just any child, ours. He pulled her closer. We'll keep trying. And they did. Year after year, money spent, faith tested. But, through it all, she never threw the college fund in his face, never said, I built you, never reminded him of the foundation, until now. If you've ever sacrificed for someone you love, truly sacrificed. Comment I understand. Because what happens when the person you built becomes the reason you break? We're about to step into that part next. Now, let me slow this down for a moment. Because this part matters. Infertility didn't just disappoint Peace, it reshaped her. At first it was optimism. Next cycle, she would say. Then it became strategy. Maybe we need a specialist. Then discipline. Vitamins, timers, ovulation calendars stuck to the refrigerator. Then silence. That's when Nolan knew it was hurting deeper. Because Peace was never silent. One evening in Houston, after church, she sat at the kitchen table, staring at a baby dedication photo someone had tagged them in. She didn't blink for a while. Nolan noticed. "You okay?" She inhaled through her nose. "Yeah." He waited. She didn't continue. Sometimes when someone says yeah like that, it means the opposite. Later that night, she stood in the bathroom holding another negative test. Her fingers trembled, not dramatically, just enough. When Nolan knocked gently, she answered, "I'm fine." He stepped in anyway, saw the test, saw the tightness in her jaw. He reached for her waist slowly. She didn't pull away, but she didn't lean in either. "Peace, we can try again." She laughed softly. Not humor, exhaustion. "We've been trying again for 5 years. That hit him. 5 years. 5 years of monthly hope rising, then dropping. 5 years of watching younger couples in the church get pregnant without planning. 5 years of smiling through baby showers while something inside her tightened. "Maybe God is teaching us patience," he offered carefully. She turned toward him slowly. "Or maybe he's quiet." That was the first time she said something like that. It scared him, because Peace's faith had always been firm. That night, they lay in bed facing opposite directions, not angry, just tired. Nolan whispered into the darkness, "God, please. I can't watch her keep breaking like this." But heaven didn't respond. And Peace? She stopped talking about it publicly. When church women asked, "When are the babies coming?" she would smile politely. "Soon." But at home, she started counting. Counting how much she had given up. Counting the years. Counting the sacrifices. And for the first time, she wondered quietly, what if this is all I get? That thought changes a person. When they committed to IVF, it felt like reclaiming control. Science, structure, a plan. Northside Fertility Clinic in Atlanta became familiar. Doctors explaining percentages. Charts showing hormone levels. Peace endured injections without complaining. Nolan held her hand during appointments. But something shifted. Intimacy became scheduled, not spontaneous. "Tonight at 9, she would say gently. Not romantic, just factual. He would nod. There was still attraction. Don't misunderstand me. Nolan desired her deeply. Peace was beautiful, confident, sharp. But pressure changes rhythm. One night after an injection left her sore, she sat on the edge of the bed, quiet. Nolan approached carefully. "You want me to give you space?" She shook her head slowly. "No." He sat beside her, brushed his fingers across her shoulder. She leaned into him, just slightly, breathing together. Not rushed, not dramatic, just two people trying to feel close without thinking about clinics and charts. He kissed her temple first, then her cheek. His hands didn't wander impatiently. They rested, moved gently, reassuring. Peace closed her eyes. For a moment, she let herself forget the appointments, forget the pressure, forget the waiting. "I don't want this to feel like a project," she whispered. "It doesn't," he said softly. But they both knew sometimes it did. There were nights, passion returned naturally, slow, tender, hands exploring familiar territory with reverence, moments where they almost forgot the reason behind it, moments where it was just them. But afterward, there was always that quiet question. Did it work? Did this finally do it? And when the answer kept coming back, no. The bedroom changed, not cold, not distant, but heavy. One evening after another failed attempt, Peace lay with her head on Nolan's chest. Her voice was barely above a whisper. If another woman ever gives you a child, he stiffened slightly. Peace. I'm just saying, if it happens naturally for someone else. He lifted her chin gently. There is no someone else. She searched his eyes for a long time, making sure. Because when you've sacrificed everything, you don't just fear loss, you fear replacement. And neither of them knew it yet. But that fear was about to be tested. Now, let's shift locations for a moment. Houston, Texas. Not the church side. Not the Sunday morning version. I'm talking about downtown Houston after 11 p.m. Neon signs buzzing over Washington Avenue. Music spilling out of upscale lounges. Valet attendants jogging between luxury cars. Laughter. Perfume. Whiskey. Temptation dressed in confidence. That was her world. Patrice Lawson. But most men knew her as Picky. Nobody really knew how she got that nickname. Some said it was because she chose her clients carefully. Others said it was because she only targeted men who looked expensive. She didn't look desperate. That's what made her dangerous. Tall, smooth, dark skin, long legs, dresses cut just enough to draw attention without screaming for it. She understood angles, understood lighting, understood how to hold eye contact 1 second longer than comfortable. She didn't chase men. She waited, and men came. Her apartment in Midtown wasn't cheap. Floor-to-ceiling windows, neutral furniture, clean. Minimal, no clutter, but behind that clean aesthetic, strategy. Her method was simple. Flirt lightly at the bar, act intrigued, suggest privacy. Then once inside her apartment, the game shifted. She studied men quickly. Ego, weakness, curiosity. She would lean close, whisper something soft, make them feel chosen. And once they were comfortable, distracted, she would introduce adventure. Do you trust me? She'd ask with a half smile. Most men said yes. They always said yes. Handcuffs marketed as playful. Scarves. Blindfolds. Nothing extreme. Just enough to blur judgment. And once they were restrained, laughing, unaware, thinking they were in control, she took what she wanted. Watches. Wallets. Access to phones. Information. By the time they realized what had happened, she was gone. And most of them didn't report it. Because embarrassment is expensive. That was her system. Calculated. Controlled. Detached. Until Nolan. It didn't start with a plan. It started with a video. One night, scrolling through YouTube, she stumbled across a sermon. Faith in Dry Seasons. Pastor Nolan Whitaker. She almost skipped it. But something about his face, calm, steady, made her pause. She pressed play. He wasn't flashy, didn't shout, didn't beg for applause. He spoke slowly, deliberately. Sometimes God allows silence, not to punish you but to prepare you. That line made her sit up straighter. Prepare you. For what? She didn't know, but she kept listening. Over the next few weeks, she watched more of his sermons. Late nights after clients left, shoes off, makeup half removed, laptop glowing in the dark. He talked about integrity, about resisting temptation, about loving your wife intentionally. That one made her laugh softly. Well, that's rare, she muttered. But she didn't mock him. She admired him. And that confused her, because admiration wasn't part of her business model. She wasn't supposed to respect men. Men were transactions, temporary. But Nolan, he felt different, grounded, disciplined, his wedding ring visible in every sermon, the way he mentioned his wife sometimes. Peace and I prayed about that. Peace. Even the name irritated her slightly. Why? She couldn't explain it. Maybe because peace had something stable, something she didn't. Admiration slowly blended with curiosity. Curiosity turned into fixation, not obsession yet. Just interest, until one night she saw a post. Pastor Nolan Whitaker, guest speaker at Houston Faith Revival Conference. Her city, her territory. She stared at the announcement for a long time. Then she smiled slowly. Well, that's interesting. And that's when admiration met opportunity. The night of the conference, she didn't dress like she did for clients. No glitter, no dramatic entrance. Just fitted black dress, simple heels, hair straightened, subtle, controlled. She arrived early and sat in the third row, close enough to see his expressions clearly. When Nolan walked on stage, she felt something unexpected. Nervousness. Why? He didn't know her. He had no idea she existed. But hearing his voice live, it felt more personal. He spoke about temptation that night, about how not every opportunity is a blessing. She folded her arms. Ironic, she whispered under her breath. But as he continued speaking, something unsettled her. He believed what he was saying. This wasn't performance. This wasn't branding. This was conviction. And conviction makes manipulation harder. After the service ended, people surrounded him. She waited, patient, calculated. When the crowd thinned, she stepped forward. Pastor Nolan? He turned. Yes? Her eyes softened slightly. I listened to your sermons online. They help. His face warmed. That means a lot. Thank you. I'm going through some things, she added carefully. I was hoping for advice. He hesitated. Not suspicion, caution. Well, I'm heading to dinner, but you can sit for a few minutes if you'd like. She nodded. They walked to the hotel restaurant inside the Hilton Americas downtown. Low lighting, soft music, business travelers scattered around. They sat across from each other. She placed her purse on the table deliberately. So, what's going on? He asked gently. She exhaled slowly. Loneliness, she said. That part wasn't entirely a lie. They talked. He offered scripture, encouragement. She studied him. The way he held eye contact respectfully. The way he never let his gaze linger too long. He wasn't flirtatious. He wasn't distracted. And that almost annoyed her. Almost. When he reached for his water, she made her move. As she leaned forward to adjust her purse, she accidentally knocked it over. Lipstick, phone, keys scattered. Oh, I'm so clumsy, she said softly. He bent down instinctively to help gather the items. It took seconds. Just seconds. Her fingers brushed the rim of his glass as she set it upright. Small vial. Quick movement. Invisible in dim lighting. Her heart beat faster. Why? This wasn't new. She'd done it before. But this time, her chest tightened. He returned to his seat, took a sip, continued talking. Minutes passed. Then he blinked. Paused. You okay? She asked, voice calm. I feel, strange. His vision blurred slightly. He tried to stand. His balance faltered. Maybe I should go upstairs, he muttered. I'll walk you, she offered. He didn't argue. In the elevator, he leaned against the wall, confused, embarrassed. I don't usually feel like this, he said quietly. I'm sure it's just exhaustion, she replied. Inside the hallway, his steps grew uneven. When he reached his room, his hands fumbled with the keycard. She stood close, too close. The door opened. He stepped inside, took 2 steps. Then his knees buckled. He grabbed the edge of a table. Wait, what? His body gave out. He collapsed to the carpet, still breathing, but fading. She stood over him, her pulse loud in her ears. This was the point of no return. She knelt beside him, watched his eyes struggle to focus. What do you want? He murmured weakly. She didn't answer, because suddenly, she wasn't sure. Was this about money, reputation, control, or was it about proving that even men like him could fall? The room felt too quiet, too still. She closed the door behind her, and that was the night everything changed. Morning light crept through the hotel curtains, not bright, just enough to hurt his eyes. Nolan stirred. His head pounded. Dry mouth. Heavy limbs. He blinked once, twice. The ceiling wasn't familiar. The room, unfamiliar. He pushed himself up slowly, breathing uneven. What? Memory came in fragments. Restaurant, water, dizziness, elevator. After that, nothing clear. He turned his head and froze. Picky was sitting in a chair near the window, watching him. Calm, leg crossed over the other. "Good morning, Pastor," she said softly. His throat tightened. "What happened?" She didn't rush her answer. "You don't remember?" His heart started beating faster. "I felt sick. I came upstairs. He stopped. "Did I pass out?" She stood up slowly and walked toward the bed. "You were very vulnerable last night." He swallowed hard. "What does that mean?" Instead of answering directly, she reached for her phone, tapped the screen, turned it toward him. He saw himself, disoriented, unsteady. He saw her close to him. He saw enough to understand what it looked like. His stomach dropped. "No," he whispered. "No, that's not. I wasn't." She tilted her head slightly. "You weren't what?" He dragged his hands over his face. "I don't remember consenting to anything." She shrugged lightly. "You didn't resist." That sentence hit him like a punch. He tried to stand, his legs still weak. "I'm married," he said, voice breaking. "I love my wife." She didn't mock him, didn't raise her voice. "I know. You set this up," he breathed. She didn't deny it. Instead, she walked to the door, paused. "I'm not posting anything," she said casually, "unless you make me." He stared at her. "What do you want?" She looked back at him over her shoulder. "We'll talk soon." And then she left, just like that. He sat there for a long time, hands shaking, mind racing. He replayed everything. The water, the dizziness, her purse falling. God, he stumbled into the bathroom, splashed water on his face. "Lord, please," he whispered. "Please tell me this isn't real." But the video was real. The implication was real. And the fear? That was overwhelming. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. A message. "We need to meet again. You don't want this online." His chest tightened. He typed quickly. "Please, I'll give you money. Just delete it." 3 dots appeared. Then, "It's not about money. Not yet. Not yet." He leaned against the bathroom sink, breathing uneven. "God, help me," he muttered. "I've preached about integrity. I've warned men about temptation. I can't let this destroy peace." He closed his eyes tightly. Shame wrapped around him like heat. He thought about calling peace right then, confessing immediately. But how do you explain something you barely understand yourself? How do you say, "I think I was manipulated," without it sounding like excuse? Fear won. He went home carrying silence. Back in Houston, Peace greeted him at the airport. She hugged him tightly. "How was the conference?" He hesitated just a second too long. "It was good." She studied his face briefly. "You look tired." "Yeah. Just travel." That was the first lie. And he felt it. Heavy. That night, as they lay in bed, his phone vibrated again. A message. "Tomorrow, 7 p.m., my place, or the church sees everything." He stared at the screen for a long time. Peace shifted beside him. "You okay?" "Just church stuff," he replied quickly. Another lie. The next evening he went. He told himself it was to end it, to reason with her, to fix it. Her midtown apartment smelled like vanilla candles. She opened the door wearing confidence again. "No cameras this time," she said lightly. He didn't sit. "I'll give you whatever you want. Just delete the video." She walked slowly around him. "You think this is about cash? Then what?" His voice cracked. She stopped in front of him. "I wanted to see if you were real." He blinked. "What?" Online, you're disciplined, loyal, righteous. She shrugged faintly. I wanted to see if you'd fall. I didn't fall, he shot back quickly. You drugged me. She stepped closer. And now? Silence. Because now, he was conscious. Now he was standing in her apartment willingly. Even if the motive was fear. She handed him her phone again. Delete it, he demanded. She shook her head. One more night, and $50 million. He stared at her. You're a respected pastor. You'll find it. He felt trapped. If he refused, the church would see the footage. If he agreed, he crossed a line he couldn't defend. He checked the time. 5 minutes. That's how long he gave himself. In those 5 minutes he thought about Peace's college fund, their wedding in Atlanta, the IVF appointments, the empty nursery room. If this video surfaced, everything collapsed. So he agreed. And that decision haunted him more than the first night, because this time he chose to stay. Afterward, he felt hollow, not victorious, not relieved, just ashamed. He drove home gripping the steering wheel tightly. When he walked into the house, Peace was on the couch, waiting. You're late. Meeting ran long, he said quietly. She looked at him, really looked at him. You smell different. He swallowed. Different? How? I don't know. That silence between them stretched longer than usual. That night, he couldn't sleep. He got out of bed and knelt beside it. God, I need you, he whispered. I should have told her. I should have walked away. I should have trusted you instead of trying to fix it myself. His voice broke slightly. Please don't let this destroy my marriage. But the messages didn't stop. She asked for more money, more meetings, more control. And each time he went, he felt himself shrinking. Not just as a pastor, as a husband, as a man. Until finally, he confessed. He stood in their living room one evening, hands trembling. Peace, I need to tell you something. Her expression shifted immediately. What is it? He inhaled sharply and told her everything. Well, almost everything. He admitted the blackmail, the money, the meetings, but the shame made his words stumble. I was sick that first night. I don't remember all of it. I swear I didn't plan this. Peace didn't scream, didn't cry. She just sat down slowly. So she has something on you? Yes. And you went back? He closed his eyes briefly. Yes. The room felt smaller, tighter. Why didn't you tell me the first time? She asked quietly. I was ashamed. That word hung between them. Ashamed. Peace stood up, walked to the window, didn't speak for a long time, and when she finally did, her voice was calm. Too calm. We'll handle it. He thought that meant forgiveness, support, unity. He didn't realize that something inside her had already shifted. When Nolan first saw the full video, it wasn't in that hotel room. It was 3 days later. She sent it. Not the whole thing. Just enough. A clip. 10 seconds. His face unfocused. His voice weak. Her figure close to him. The implication did the damage. He watched it once. Then again. Then he dropped the phone on the kitchen counter like it burned. Peace was upstairs folding laundry. The house felt too normal. Too quiet. His phone buzzed again. We need to talk seriously now. He typed slowly. What do you want? The reply came almost instantly. $50,000. And you come alone? He stared at the number. She had done the math. It wasn't random. It was calculated. He texted back. I don't have that kind of money just sitting. 3 dots. You have influence. Figure it out. He felt something shift in his chest then. Not just fear. Pressure. Because now it wasn't about whether this would surface. It was about how much he was willing to pay to bury it. He sat at the dining table and pressed his fingers into his temples. God, what did I do? He thought about telling Peace again, fully this time, about the money, about the new demand. But shame has a way of shrinking your voice. So instead, he withdrew funds quietly. Savings, church honorarium from guest speaking. emergency reserves. Each transfer felt like peeling dignity away layer by layer. The meeting place this time wasn't a restaurant. It was her apartment again. Same midtown building. Same quiet elevator. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised. "You brought it." He handed her an envelope. She counted without embarrassment. "That's a good start," she said. "Start?" His voice tightened. She looked up at him calmly. "You didn't think this ended here?" His chest tightened. "What more do you want?" She stepped closer. "You." That word landed heavy. "No." Her eyes held his. "If I release that clip, your church won't ask questions, they'll assume. And assumption spreads faster than truth." He felt trapped again. "But I paid you." "You paid for silence," she corrected gently. "Not closure." He exhaled shakily. "This isn't who I am." She tilted her head slightly. "Then why are you here?" Silence. Because he didn't know how to answer that without sounding weak. And in that silence, she understood she still had control. The second time wasn't confusion. It wasn't disorientation. It wasn't fog. It was awareness. And that's what made it worse. He knew exactly where he was. He knew exactly what it meant. And as he stood in her living room, heart pounding, something inside him kept whispering, "Leave. Just leave." But fear anchored him there. "You're tense," she said quietly. "I shouldn't be here. Yet you are." He closed his eyes briefly. "I'm doing this to protect my wife." She studied him carefully. "You keep saying that." He didn't respond, because it sounded hollow even to him. Afterward, when the air felt heavy and still, he didn't look at her. He walked straight to the bathroom, locked the door, turned on the faucet just to create noise. He gripped the edge of the sink, looked at himself in the mirror. His reflection looked unfamiliar, not because of what he had done, but because of the choice behind it. "God," he whispered, voice breaking slightly, "please don't let this destroy my wife." His breathing became uneven. "I thought I was strong. I thought I had control. I preach about discipline and I—" He stopped, closed his eyes. "I'm scared." That word felt raw, not scared of exposure, scared of hurting peace, scared of losing the woman who gave him everything at 18. He pressed his forehead against the mirror. "Please, fix this. I can't." He stayed in that bathroom longer than necessary, trying to gather himself, trying to wash guilt off his hands. But guilt doesn't rinse, it settles. When he walked back into the living room, Picky was watching something on television casually. "Relax," she said without looking at him. "You're not the first married man to panic. I'm not most married men." She glanced at him then. "No," she agreed quietly. "You're not." And for a brief second, something like doubt flickered across her face. But it disappeared quickly. When he left that apartment, he felt smaller. He drove home slower than usual, hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. At every red light, he imagined headlines. Pastor scandal. Affair. Hypocrite. He imagined peace reading comments online. He imagined her face when she would finally know everything. And that thought crushed him more than prison ever could. When he stepped into the house, Peace was sitting at the kitchen island, scrolling through something on her phone. She looked up. "You're late again." He swallowed. "Yeah." Her eyes searched his. "You want to tell me what's really going on?" And that was the moment. The fork in the road. He could lie again, or he could collapse under the weight of truth. He chose truth. "I messed up," he said quietly. She didn't move. "What does that mean?" He told her about the video, about the demand, about the money. His words stumbled. He didn't dramatize it, didn't excuse it, just laid it out. When he finished, the room felt hollow. Peace didn't scream, didn't throw anything. She just leaned back slightly, processing. "So she has proof," she said evenly. "Yes, and you went back." He nodded. Her jaw tightened slightly. "But you went back?" "Yes." A pause. Long. Heavy. "Why didn't you tell me the first night?" she asked. I thought I could fix it, and instead, I made it worse. She stood slowly, walked to the sink, turned on the water, not because she needed it, because she needed a second to breathe. When she turned back around, her face was composed. "We'll handle it," she said. Calm, controlled, measured. But if you looked closely, if you really looked, you could see something shifting behind her eyes. Not hysteria, not panic. Something quieter, more dangerous. Because sometimes the loudest storms start in silence. After Nolan confessed, the house changed. Not visibly. Nothing dramatic shifted overnight. Dinner still got cooked. Church still happened. They still slept in the same bed. But peace stopped asking questions out loud and started asking them silently. That first night after his confession, when Nolan finally fell asleep from emotional exhaustion, Peace lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her breathing was steady. Too steady. She replayed every word he had said. The video, the money, the meetings. She has proof. That sentence echoed. Proof meant permanence. Proof meant something real had happened. She turned her head slightly toward him in the dark. "You let her that close." She whispered so softly it barely existed. He didn't hear. The next morning, after Nolan left for church meetings, Peace sat at the kitchen island with her laptop open. She typed the name slowly. Patrice Lawson. Nothing specific at first. Then she tried variations. Scrolling, searching, and then she found her. Instagram, private account, profile picture, confident smile, head tilted slightly, eyes bold. Peace stared at the image longer than she intended. "She doesn't even look like trouble," she murmured. She requested to follow. Denied. She created a second account. No picture. Generic name. Requested again. Accepted. Now the scroll began. Clubs, restaurants, midtown rooftops, wine glasses, mirrors, photos taken from angles that knew exactly what they were doing. Peace studied each one carefully. Not angrily, clinically. "She's younger," she whispered. "Thinner." She paused on a photo of Picky in a black dress, similar to the one she described Nolan wearing that night at the conference. Her jaw tightened. She sat in church like that. She kept scrolling. There were no church photos, no scripture quotes, no humility, just nightlife. And men in the background occasionally, never tagged. Peace zoomed in on faces, looking for Nolan. She didn't find him, but she kept looking. Because the mind doesn't calm when you tell it to. It searches for confirmation, for comparison, for evidence that your pain makes sense. Later that week, she found something else. A story post. Picky standing in front of a mirror, hand resting lightly on her stomach. Caption: "Life has a funny way of surprising you." Peace's breath caught. She replayed it, zoomed in. Her hand stayed on her stomach just a second too long. Peace whispered, "No." She checked the date. Recent, very recent. Her heart began beating harder. She clicked through comments. Someone had typed, "Are you pregnant?" No reply, but no denial either. Peace leaned back slowly in her chair. The room suddenly felt too small. Her mind began connecting timelines. Conference, meetings, money, blackmail. And now, she whispered it aloud, "She's pregnant." The words felt foreign in her mouth. Heavy, ugly, impossible. She closed the laptop abruptly, walked to the sink, turned on the faucet, just to drown out the sound of her own breathing. She's pregnant. After everything, after the years of hormone injections, after the tears in bathroom stalls, after giving up her college fund, after building his church, after praying, after fasting, another woman was carrying his child. Her hand trembled slightly as she gripped the edge of the counter. "No," she whispered. And that whisper held more than denial. It held fracture. Peace didn't confront Nolan immediately. She watched him instead. Observed, measured. That evening, when he came home, she asked casually, "Did she ever say she was seeing someone else?" He frowned slightly. "No." "Why?" "Just asking." He hesitated. "Why are you asking?" She shrugged lightly. "Curiosity." He nodded slowly. But he didn't suspect yet. Days passed, and then the morning came. 5:47 a.m. The knock, the arrest, the words that tore through everything. Double homicide, unborn child. And that's when Nolan learned, not from Peace, not from Picky, from the police. "Pregnant?" he had said at the door. "What are you talking about?" That confusion was real. That shock wasn't staged. He hadn't known. And Peace saw that in his face, saw the disbelief, saw the genuine panic. But it didn't soothe her, because pregnancy doesn't care whether you knew. It just exists. After the patrol car disappeared that morning, Peace stood in the driveway longer than necessary. The sun barely rising, birds starting their routine. Normal world, abnormal reality. She was pregnant, she whispered again. This time the words didn't tremble, they hardened. She walked back inside slowly, sat at the dining table, folded her hands, and for the first time in 18 years, she cried alone, not loud, not dramatic. Tears slid quietly down her cheeks, breathing uneven. After everything, she whispered, voice cracking slightly. She gets pregnant? Her chest tightened painfully. I prayed. A pause. I sacrificed. Another pause. I waited, and then it slipped out, raw. After everything, she gets pregnant? That sentence wasn't just jealousy. It was grief. It was betrayal layered on infertility. It was watching someone else receive the miracle you begged heaven for. She bent forward slightly, pressing her forehead against her clasped hands. Her shoulders shook once, twice, then she straightened up, wiped her face carefully, walked to the bathroom, looked at herself in the mirror. "You will not break," she said quietly. But something had already changed. Hurt began turning into something else. Not rage, not yet. Possession. Because if that child was Nolan's, then it meant a piece of him existed outside their marriage, and Peace had built too much to allow that. Later that afternoon, detectives returned to ask more questions. One of them said carefully, "Mrs. Whitaker, we have confirmation the victim was approximately 6 weeks pregnant." 6 weeks. Peace calculated silently. Timeline matched. Her throat tightened, but her face remained composed. "And where were you that night?" the detective asked. "At Northside Fertility Clinic," she replied smoothly. "My husband was donating sperm." That part was true. They had been at the clinic earlier that day. An IVF cycle appointment. He had provided a sample. Records existed. Documentation existed. She knew that. And in that moment, an idea formed. Small. Precise. If timing became important, the clinic provided structure. Proof of presence. An alibi framework. She didn't fully plan anything yet, but the thought anchored itself. That evening, she returned to Picky's social media one last time, scrolled through the photos again. This time not comparing, not studying, just confirming. "This ends," she whispered, her voice no longer shaking, just steady, controlled, calculated. "And I need you to pause with me here. Was Peace wrong to feel this way? After everything she had given, after everything she had endured, after watching another woman carry what she prayed for, would you have handled it differently?" Comment below. Because what happens next isn't just about jealousy. It's about what grief becomes when it's left alone too long. Peace did not storm into Picky's life. She studied first. Timing. Patterns. Location tags. Midtown Houston. Late evenings. Occasional afternoons. One particular night, Nolan told her he needed to end it. "I'm going to her place," he said quietly. Peace held his gaze. "You're going to tell her it's over?" "Yes." "And you mean that?" "Yes." She nodded slowly. "Okay." Her calm unsettled him more than anger would have. He left. Peace waited 10 minutes. Then she picked up her keys. She knew the building address already. Security at the front desk barely glanced at her. She carried herself like she belonged. Elevator ride. Floor number memorized. Her heartbeat steady, not racing. Steady. She knocked. Picky opened the door halfway. For a brief second, confusion flashed across her face. "Yes?" Peace's voice was level. "I'm Nolan's wife." Silence. Not dramatic, just heavy. Picky straightened slightly. "Oh." Not apology, not fear, just acknowledgement. Peace stepped inside without waiting to be invited. The apartment smelled like candles again. Minimal furniture, large windows. "It's bold of you to come here," Picky said lightly. Peace studied her face up close for the first time. Younger, yes. Confident, yes. But not divine, not special, just human. "You're pregnant," Peace said. It wasn't a question. Picky's expression flickered. "Who told you that? Are you—" A pause. Then, calmly, "Yes." The words sliced through the room. Peace's breathing shifted. Barely. "Is it his?" Picky's jaw tightened slightly. "You already know the timeline." Silence stretched between them. Peace walked closer. "How far along?" 6 weeks. 6 weeks. The math settled into her chest like weight. Peace's voice dropped lower. "Do you know how long we've been trying?" Picky didn't answer. "Do you know how many injections I've taken? How many appointments? How many nights I've laid there praying?" Still no answer. Picky crossed her arms. "This isn't my problem." That sentence, that detachment, something inside Peace shifted permanently. "This is my husband," Peace said quietly. "And that's my child," Picky replied. Possession met possession. The room felt smaller, tighter. "You blackmailed him," Peace said. "He came back willingly." That landed, because technically, it was true. Peace stepped closer until they were almost face to face. "You think you won?" Picky didn't flinch. "I think life doesn't ask for permission." Peace's lips parted slightly, but no words came out immediately. She just looked at her, really looked. And in that moment, something hardened, not loud, not explosive, just final. "This will not define my marriage," Peace said softly. Picky tilted her head. "It already has." That was the last line spoken before everything tilted. What happened next wasn't a scream-filled fight. It wasn't dramatic chaos. It was controlled, until it wasn't. Peace reached for her phone, opened Nolan's message thread, showed it to Picky. "He told me everything." Picky laughed lightly. "He didn't tell you everything." Peace's eyes sharpened. "What does that mean?" Picky smirked slightly. "He told you about the money, about the meetings. But did he tell you he came back knowing exactly what he was doing?" Peace's chest tightened. "He said he was trying to protect us. Men always say that." Silence, again. Heavy. Peace stepped back slightly. Breathing, uneven now. "You think this is romantic?" Picky continued. "You think he was forced every time?" Peace's voice cracked slightly. "Stop." But Picky didn't. He chose to stay. That sentence hit differently. Because doubt feeds obsession. Peace's hands trembled. "After everything," she whispered. "What?" "After everything I gave him." "You get pregnant?" Her voice broke then. Not loud, just fractured. Picky didn't soften. "Maybe I didn't have to beg heaven for it." That was the spark. The final one. Peace moved forward. Not swinging, not screaming, just pushing. Hard. Picky stumbled backward slightly, lost footing near the edge of a glass coffee table. It happened in seconds. Too fast for intention to fully form. A slip, a sharp impact. the sound of glass cracking, and then stillness. Peace froze, breathing hard. "Get up," she whispered. No response. "Get up." Nothing. She stepped closer, knelt slightly. Her hands hovered but didn't touch at first. Blood, not much, but enough. Her mind raced. This wasn't planned. This wasn't structured. This wasn't calculated. But it had happened. Her phone buzzed. Nolan calling. She stared at the screen. Didn't answer. She stood slowly, looked around the apartment, thought about the clinic visit earlier that day, the documented sperm donation, the timestamps, the structure. Her breathing slowed. Not because she wasn't scared, but because her mind was organizing. When she left the apartment that night, no one saw her clearly. Just another woman stepping into an elevator. Calm, measured, controlled. The next morning, 5:47 a.m., the knock came, and when the officer said pregnant, Nolan didn't know, but Peace did. And she had already decided what this would cost. Before the night Peace confronted Picky alone, there was Nolan, standing in that same apartment hours earlier, frustrated, tired, cornered. Picky had increased her demands again. "Another 15,000, she said calmly. "And we keep this quiet." "I don't have any more money," Nolan replied, voice tight. "You'll find it." "No." His jaw hardened. "This ends." She studied him. "You're done?" "Yes." "And if I post everything?" He inhaled sharply. For the first time since this began, something inside him snapped. "Post it," he said, voice shaking but firm. "I'm tired." The words surprised even him. "I can't keep living like this." Picky folded her arms. "You think your church will forgive you?" "I don't know." "And your wife?" His eyes flickered. Pain, fear, love. "I should have told her sooner." "You still don't get it," Picky said quietly. This was never about money. He stepped back toward the door. "I'm done." He walked out without looking back, and that was the last time he saw her alive. The next morning, 5:47 a.m., the knock. Boom, boom, boom. Pastor Nolan Whitaker opened the door. He opened it half awake. Under arrest. Double homicide. Unborn child. And that word, pregnant. He blinked rapidly. "Pregnant? What are you talking about?" That shock was real. He hadn't known. Not from her. Not from Peace. From the police. In the patrol car, he kept repeating it. "I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know." But the officers didn't respond, because knowledge doesn't erase DNA. At the station, they laid it out clearly. She was approximately 6 weeks pregnant. 6 weeks. His mind raced. Timeline. Conference. Blackmail. The second visit. His stomach dropped. "And your DNA was present," the detective added calmly. He closed his eyes. Of course it was. He had been there. Conscious. Guilty. Ashamed. "But I didn't kill her," he whispered. The detective watched him carefully. "Witnesses saw you leaving her apartment angry." "I was angry," Nolan admitted. "But I didn't touch her." He leaned forward in his chair. "She was alive when I left." The room went quiet. And somewhere across Houston, news alerts began lighting up phones. By noon, local news had picked it up. "Houston pastor arrested in death of woman and unborn child." The words spread faster than explanation. Church members began calling Peace. At first, gently. "Is this true?" "We're praying." Then, more cautiously, "What's going on?" Peace answered each call with controlled composure. "We're trusting God." She did not cry publicly. She did not defend loudly. She remained steady. But inside, everything was moving. At the police station, Nolan sat across from detectives reviewing evidence. DNA confirmation. Financial transfers. Phone records showing repeated contact. "You paid her large sums," one detective noted. "Yes." "For what?" "Blackmail." The detective raised an eyebrow. "You expect us to believe that?" "It's the truth." They showed him still images from building security footage. Him entering, him leaving, time stamped. 8:42 p.m. Exit. Time of death estimated between 9:30 and 11. You left angry, the detective said. I left, Nolan corrected quietly. But you didn't return. No, he felt exhausted, emotionally drained. He thought about peace, alone, at home, facing the church, facing cameras, facing whispers. Can I call my wife? He asked softly. Later, meanwhile, outside the church building in Houston, reporters gathered. Microphones, cameras. Was Pastor Nolan living a double life? Did church funds pay hush money? Speculation turned into narrative, and narrative turned into public judgment. Some congregation members stood by him. He's human. Everyone makes mistakes. Others were less forgiving. If he cheated, he lied. If he lied, what else did he lie about? Attendance dropped that Sunday. The sanctuary felt emptier. Peace stood at the podium to address the congregation. Her voice did not shake. We are going through a trial, she said calmly, but faith is not tested when life is easy. Her composure impressed many, but one detective watching from the back noticed something. She was too composed, not defensive, not frantic, just steady. And steady, under this kind of pressure, can mean strength or preparation. Later that week, as investigators reviewed building security from Picky's apartment complex again, something caught their attention. Another figure entering the building that night. A woman. Time stamped shortly after Nolan left. Face partially obscured by camera angle, but height, build, hair. It matched Peace. The detective leaned back slowly. He requested traffic camera footage near the fertility clinic that same day, cross-checking timestamps. Something wasn't aligning perfectly. The IVF appointment had ended earlier than Peace initially implied. There was a gap, a small one, but enough, and small gaps are where truth hides. The detective didn't confront Peace immediately. He observed first, reviewed timestamps again. Northside Fertility Clinic appointment, 4:10 p.m. Departure logged, 5:02 p.m. Picky's estimated time of death, between 9:30 and 11 p.m. Nolan left the apartment at 8:42 p.m., but traffic cameras showed something interesting. Peace's vehicle heading toward Midtown around 9:18 p.m., not toward home, not toward church, toward Picky's building. The detective tapped the screen slowly. He requested the building elevator footage again, zoomed in. The woman entering after Nolan left. Same coat Peace wore to the clinic earlier that day. Same handbag. The footage wasn't crystal clear, but it was close enough. He scheduled another visit. Peace answered the door with the same composure she had shown all week. Yes? Mrs. Whitaker, we need to clarify a few details. She stepped aside calmly. Of course. They sat in her living room, sunlight spilling across the hardwood floor. Normal home. Quiet home. The detective spoke gently. You mentioned you came home directly after the clinic. Yes. Did you leave again that evening? A small pause. No. He slid a printed image across the coffee table. Blurry, but recognizable. She stared at it, did not flinch. That looks like me. It is you. He replied quietly. Another pause, longer, measured. You went to see her, he said. Peace exhaled slowly. Yes. Why? Her voice didn't rise. I needed to understand. Understand what? She looked directly at him. Why she thought she could take what was mine. The detective didn't interrupt. She was pregnant, he said carefully. Peace's jaw tightened slightly. Yes. You knew? Yes. And your husband didn't? No. Silence. Then, the question that mattered most. What happened inside that apartment? Peace's breathing shifted. Just slightly. Not panic. Memory. We argued. Did you push her? A pause. I don't remember pushing her. That's not an answer. Her voice lowered. She told me he chose her. The detective leaned forward. Did you push her? Peace closed her eyes briefly. Yes. The word landed heavy. I didn't mean to. She started, then stopped, composed herself. She fell, and you left. Yes. You didn't call for help. Another pause. No. The detective sat back. You understand what that means? Peace nodded once. I do. They brought Nolan in for questioning again. This time, not about him, about her. He sat across from the detective, exhausted. What is it now? She went to see Patrice after you left. His heart skipped. What? She admitted it. No, he whispered. No, she wouldn't. She did. The room felt suddenly too small. Is she being charged? Nolan asked quietly. Yes. His hands began trembling. This isn't possible. But it was. When they brought Peace into the same station later that day, Nolan saw her through the glass before they allowed them to speak. She looked smaller somehow, but not broken. He sat across from her finally. Peace. His voice cracked. She met his eyes. Calm. I went to talk, she said softly. You pushed her. She said you chose her. Silence. She said she was carrying your child like it was victory. His throat tightened painfully. I didn't know she was pregnant. I know. Another silence. And then it came. 18 years compressed into one sentence. I built you, Peace said quietly. Her voice didn't shake. I gave you my college fund at 18. I followed you to Houston. I stood beside you when no one knew your name. I sat in fertility clinics while you held my hand and promised me we would have a child. Tears filled Nolan's eyes. She was carrying what I prayed for, Peace whispered. That sentence broke something inside him. I didn't ask for this, he said weakly. And neither did I. A guard stepped closer. Time was ending. I didn't mean to kill her, Peace added softly. I couldn't let her take what was ours. Nolan shook his head slowly. This isn't ours anymore. That hurt her. But she didn't show it fully. They stood. Cuffs clicked around her wrists this time. The sound echoed louder than his had. As they led her away, she turned back once. Not panicked. Not screaming, just looking. And in that look was everything. Sacrifice, love, possession, loss. And just when it felt like the story couldn't twist further, the final turn was waiting. Because during intake processing, a routine medical screening revealed something neither of them expected. But that part, we step into next. Peace did not cry when they processed her. She answered questions calmly. Full name, date of birth, medical history, all of it spoken evenly. The nurse flipped through paperwork without looking up. Any current medical conditions? No. Any medications? No. The nurse paused. When was your last menstrual cycle? Peace blinked. The question caught her slightly off guard. I'm not sure. Approximate. She hesitated, counted silently. Clinic visit. Stress. Arrest. She swallowed. 3 weeks ago. Maybe a little more. The nurse nodded. Standard intake requires a pregnancy test. Peace stiffened just slightly. That's unnecessary. It's policy. Policy. That word felt almost ironic. She gave the sample without argument, sat on the small metal bench inside the intake room, hands folded in her lap, breathing slow, controlled. She wasn't thinking about pregnancy. She was thinking about sentencing, about court, about headlines, about Nolan. Would he stand by her? Would he forgive her? Would he hate her? Her thoughts were interrupted by the nurse returning. The nurse's expression wasn't dramatic, just alert. Mrs. Whitaker. Yes. The nurse lowered her voice slightly. The test is positive. Silence. Real silence. Peace stared at her. I'm sorry. You're pregnant. The word didn't land at first. It hovered, suspended. No, Peace whispered. The nurse checked the chart again. Yes, approximately 3 weeks. 3 weeks. 3. Peace's mind raced. 3 weeks meant before the confrontation, before the push, before the fall, before the arrest, naturally conceived. Not IVF, not injections, not clinic scheduling, just one night, one quiet night in their bedroom when they weren't tracking anything, when they weren't counting, when they were just husband and wife. Her hand instinctively moved to her stomach. 3 weeks. The timing was almost cruel. She let out a slow breath, not a sob, not laughter, just disbelief. After all the years, after all the waiting, now. The nurse continued speaking softly about prenatal monitoring and legal protocols. Peace barely heard it, because one sentence kept repeating in her mind, after everything. Now, they told Nolan during his release paperwork. The charges against him had shifted fully. Evidence confirmed he left before the estimated time of death. Peace had admitted involvement. His name would clear legally, but reputation? That would take longer. As he signed documents, an officer spoke casually. "Your wife requested we inform you. She's pregnant." The pen slipped from his fingers. "What?" "She tested positive during intake." He blinked rapidly. "No, approximately 3 weeks. 3 weeks. His knees weakened. He grabbed the edge of the desk. 3 weeks meant before everything exploded, before the arrest. Before the confrontation, before the push. He felt his chest tighten painfully. He sank into the chair behind him. She couldn't get pregnant, he murmured. The officer didn't respond. Nolan covered his face with both hands. A sound escaped him. Not quite a cry, not quite a laugh. Something in between. God. The irony hit like a wave. The woman he loved. The woman who sacrificed her future at 18. The woman who sat in fertility clinics year after year. The woman who pushed another woman in a moment of unbearable grief was now carrying his child. Naturally, without intervention, without planning, without medical precision. He stood abruptly. "I need to see her." When they sat across from each other in the visitation room days later, the air felt different. Not charged, not tense, just heavy. "I heard," he said softly. Peace nodded once. "I didn't know," she replied. "I know." Silence lingered. He looked at her stomach. It didn't show yet. But knowing changed everything. "I prayed for this," he whispered. "So did I." Another pause. Long, careful. "And it came like this," he added quietly. Peace inhaled slowly. "I didn't plan that night," she said. "I know. When she said she was carrying your child," her voice faltered. He closed his eyes briefly. "I didn't know she was pregnant." "I know," she repeated. They sat in shared grief, shared love, shared consequence. "God answered," Nolan said softly. Peace's lips trembled slightly. "Yes, but not the way we imagined." That was the bitter part. The miracle arrived wrapped in loss, in headlines, in handcuffs, in court dates. Peace reached across the table as far as the restraints allowed. He took her hand, their fingers intertwined. 18 years, all compressed into that touch. "You're going to be a father," she whispered. He nodded slowly. "And you're going to be a mother." That sentence felt sacred and tragic. At the same time, because she would carry the child behind bars, he would hold the child outside. Close, but separated. "I still love you," he said quietly. She didn't hesitate. "I know." No dramatic declarations, no promises of forever. Just honesty. Soft, broken, real. And as they stood to leave, Nolan paused. "This doesn't erase what happened," he said gently. "I know. But it doesn't erase what we were either." Peace swallowed. Tears finally slipping down her cheeks. Quiet, unforced. After everything, they were getting the one thing they had begged heaven for, and it had cost them almost everything. Sometimes prayers are answered, just not the way we think they should be. The first Sunday Nolan returned to the pulpit, the sanctuary felt exposed, not empty, but honest. Rows that once filled before worship even began now held visible gaps. Families that used to sit shoulder to shoulder now left a cushion of space between them, not out of cruelty, but uncertainty. The air was different. He stood in the back hallway for a moment before walking out. His hand rested against the wall, breathing in, breathing out. God, don't let me perform today, he whispered. Let me tell the truth, because performance had cost him too much already. When he stepped onto the stage, conversations softened, not dramatically, just enough. He walked slowly to the podium, placed both hands on it, felt the wood beneath his palms. This was the same pulpit Peace had prayed over with him when they first moved to Houston. The same one she helped polish before the church dedication. The same one she told him, at 22 years old, preach like you believe it. He swallowed. Good morning, he said quietly. The response came back, softer than before. He nodded once. I won't waste time pretending, he began. You already know. A faint shift moved through the room. Some people looked down. Some leaned forward. I made decisions I should have handled differently. He didn't rush the sentence. He let it sit. I thought I was protecting my marriage. A pause. But what I was really protecting was my image. The words felt heavy leaving his mouth. Because that was the truth. When fear makes your decisions, he continued slowly, you start convincing yourself that silence is wisdom. He inhaled. It's not. He stepped slightly away from the podium now, voice softer. Secrets don't preserve marriages. He looked up. They rot them. No shouting, no theatrics, just truth. I kept something from my wife that I should have told her the first night. A quiet break in his voice. And by the time I told her, the damage had already spread. The sanctuary was silent enough to hear someone shifting in a seat. Love, he said slowly, is not control. He let that sentence land. Love is not possession. Another breath. And sacrifice without healing becomes resentment. A few heads lifted at that. Some of you have given years to your spouse, he continued. Your time, your youth, your dreams, your energy. He paused. But if you never heal the pain behind what you gave up, it doesn't disappear. He swallowed. It waits. He closed his eyes briefly. And sometimes it explodes. The word hung there. Explodes. I stand here today, not as a perfect man, he said softly, but as one who learned that burying your hurt doesn't make you strong. His voice cracked slightly. It makes you dangerous. That line wasn't rehearsed. It came from lived consequence. I still love my wife, he said quietly. That confession felt fragile. She is not a villain in my story. She is a woman who loved deeply and broke quietly. He let that breathe. And I was a man who feared losing everything, so I chose silence. He looked across the smaller congregation. If you are hiding something right now because you're afraid of how it will look, he paused. Don't. His voice lowered. Tell the truth while you still can. The message wasn't polished. It wasn't triumphant. It was heavy and honest. When he stepped away from the podium, there was no immediate applause. Just stillness. Then one voice whispered, Amen. And that one voice sounded sincere. Months later, Peace went into labor. There were no church flowers, no excited family waiting in a hallway, just fluorescent lights and institutional walls. She gripped the edge of the bed during contractions, breathing carefully. Okay, okay, she whispered through clenched teeth. The nurse spoke calmly. Almost there, Peace closed her eyes tightly, through pain, through memory, through consequence. After years of injections that didn't work, after charts and appointments and negative tests, her body now moved naturally. No medical schedule, no hormone calendar, just life unfolding on its own time. When the baby cried for the first time, the sound filled the small room with something that didn't belong there. Hope. Peace's eyes flooded immediately. Is he okay? she asked breathlessly. He's healthy, the nurse replied. Healthy. That word broke her. She held him carefully. Tiny, warm, alive. Her son. The child she prayed for when she was 25, when she was 30, when she was 33, now here, at 35, behind bars. She pressed her forehead lightly against his. I'm so sorry, she whispered, not for loving him, but for the world he entered. When Nolan was notified, he stopped mid-sentence during a church counseling session. You have a son, the officer said simply. The room spun slightly. He sat down slowly. A son, he repeated under his breath. 3 weeks. That's what they had told him months ago. 3 weeks pregnant at intake. Naturally conceived. He had gone over that timeline 100 times in his head. It had happened during one of their quiet nights. One of the nights they weren't tracking ovulation. One of the nights they were simply husband and wife. No pressure, no performance, just closeness. And life had chosen that moment. The irony didn't feel cruel anymore. It felt sacred and tragic. When he held his son for the first time, his hands trembled uncontrollably. The baby's fingers wrapped instinctively around his thumb. Hey, Nolan whispered softly. His voice cracked. I've been waiting for you. Tears fell freely. He didn't wipe them away. Peace watched from the bed, exhausted. But peaceful in a way she hadn't been in years. He looks like you, she said quietly. Nolan laughed softly through tears. Or maybe he looks like answered prayer. They sat in silence for a moment, just breathing, just existing. This isn't how we imagined it, Nolan said gently. No, she replied. But he's here. That was enough. Time moved too fast. The guard shifted near the door. Nolan leaned closer. I'm going to raise him to know you, he whispered. Peace nodded slowly. And I'm going to raise him to understand consequences. That honesty didn't sting. It healed. I built you, she said softly, not accusing now, remembering. And I never stopped loving you. He swallowed. I know. He pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. Love can save you. She finished the sentence quietly. But jealousy can bury you. They both understood now. Love is powerful, but unprocessed pain can twist it. Sacrifice is noble, but silent resentment poisons it. Secrets feel protective, until they detonate. As Nolan walked away from that visitation room carrying their son in his arms, he didn't feel victorious. He felt humbled, broken open, changed, and maybe that was the only way healing could begin. Before I let you go, I want to say something that might sit with you for a while. Love, by itself, is not enough. We grow up believing that if two people love each other deeply, that love will protect them from anything. But this story shows us something different. Love can exist, real love, and still be damaged by silence, pride, fear, and unhealed pain. Nolan loved peace. That was never fake. Peace loved Nolan. That was never in question. But love without honesty becomes fragile. Love without healing becomes heavy. Love without communication becomes dangerous. Sometimes we think sacrifice is proof of devotion. And yes, sacrifice matters. But when you sacrifice without processing what it costs you, that sacrifice doesn't disappear. It stores itself quietly. It waits. It grows roots in places you don't check. Peace gave up her college fund. She gave up years. She gave up dreams she never complained about. But did she heal from what that cost her? Did Nolan truly understand the weight of what she carried? Unspoken pain doesn't stay quiet forever. It transforms. And here's the part that might challenge you. Jealousy doesn't start as hatred. It starts as hurt. It starts as comparison. It starts as, why not me? It starts as, after everything I've done. And if you don't confront it early, gently, honestly, it can push you to become someone you never thought you could be. So here's my advice to you. Don't wait until you're overwhelmed to tell the truth. Don't bury disappointment to look strong. Don't let resentment sit in your chest because you think love requires silence. If something hurts you, say it. If something scares you, admit it. If something feels unfair, bring it into the light. Because darkness feeds distortion, and distortion feeds destruction. Now here's the question I want you to really think about. If you were in Peace's position, after years of infertility, sacrifice and silent pain, and you discovered another woman was pregnant for your spouse, would your love have remained love? Or would it have quietly turned into possession? Be honest with yourself, not the church version of you, not the public version of you, the real you. What would you have done? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your thoughts. Because stories like this aren't just entertainment, they're mirrors. And sometimes the reflection is uncomfortable. If this story touched you, even a little, if it made you think about your own silence, your own pride, your own hidden grief, like this video, share it. And subscribe to Mr. Austin Love and Story Tales. Because sometimes the stories that hurt the most teach the most. I'll see you in the next one. I'll see you in the next one.
If you enjoy American Love Stories, please consider subscribing and comment what you need next. And love you all from Mr. Austin.